Want to grow a thriving membership community in 2025? This video will save you literally months of trial and error and help you avoid costly mistakes that even top creators are making. My name's Tom Ross and I coach many of the world's top creators building successful membership communities. I also run my own membership serving 200 community founders. After 20 years of building communities online, I see the patterns of what's working and what isn't. And in this video, I'll walk you through 10 essential do's and 10 critical don'ts for building your online community. I basically want this video to be your community cheat sheet, so let's get into it. Define a clear outcome or promise. Your community should offer members a specific transformation or result. Two mistakes I commonly see are people either ignoring the outcome and saying something like, I'm building a community for plumbers, or focusing on an outcome that is super vague, like, we're going to help humans to improve their lives. Your promised outcome needs to be clear and compelling to attract prospective members. For instance, at Learn Community, we help people to launch and grow their online membership communities. This attracts the right kind of members, community builders, and they go into the community with clear expectations about what they're going to get from joining. Don't treat your community as an afterthought. Community takes a ton of work, and it rarely succeeds when it's treated as a second priority in your business. Many of the strongest communities I know are the signature offering for that particular business. They're the main priority. I think when community is treated like an add-on, members can pick up on that part-time effort and mentality. Also, if the community is a secondary part of your business, often it gets under-allocated in terms of resource and time. So, if you want your community to succeed, you need to treat it like a priority. Reverse engineer your offer stack. Here's what I see most community builders do. Let's say they're building a community for gardeners. They say, okay, we're going to include some events, maybe some resources and courses, and a space where gardeners can ask questions. What they're doing here is they're starting with the features and benefits rather than working backwards from the community's promised outcome. Instead, I prefer an approach I call outcome-informed features. This is where you design every feature in the community with the outcome in mind. Let's say a community's outcome is to help you grow food in your back garden. You need to then ask yourself, what features would help the members of that community be more likely to achieve that outcome? Maybe they start with an audit of their growing space where they can understand their soil, the sunlight availability in different parts of the garden, the space that they can allocate towards growing. Then there's a place in the community they can get help growing a super beginner-friendly crop, and maybe another space where they can get help if things go wrong, if there's inconsistent growth or a pest problem or something like that. There's experts on hand to guide them through. The point is, rather than a bunch of disconnected and disparate features, you are architecting each feature with the outcome in mind. Your overall offer stack should thereby drastically increase the chances of your members reaching their desired outcome state. Don't try to be the star of the show. We are so used to social media, I think, being a bit of a celebrity contest. We're all building our personal brands and getting our faces out there as creators, and it can feel kind of exhausting. But community is different. Community is not about you. It's about the members. It's about the collective of people inside that community. And your job as the community leader is to shine a light, not on yourself, but on your members. You should be facilitating connections and discussions rather than dominating them. Be intentional about your member avatar. You need to understand who your community is actually for and who it isn't for. The strongest communities I see really benefit from a lot of shared experience between their members. I'll give you two examples of this. I'm in a UK community for founders and entrepreneurs, and members are vetted based on where they're at in their career. This particular community is for pretty experienced entrepreneurs who built something at a decent scale before. And as a result, the quality of connections and shared conversations is absolutely exceptional. I've also worked with one of my one-on-one clients to define her ideal persona and what we call her anti-persona. What we did is we went into the data of her members and we started to understand there were certain traits that members had whereby they would always stick around, they'd be highly engaged, they'd be wonderful, and they'd have a higher customer lifetime value. There were also members that churned, didn't particularly engage, and just weren't a great fit. By breaking these two groups apart and seeing the patterns, we were able to form an ideal persona and an anti-persona. And now what my client does is, at the application phase, she is mindful about letting in more of the ideal types of members. And what happened? Her retention went up and her churn went down. And the fascinating thing about this is the community didn't change. The offer didn't change. None of the other work that she's doing changed. But just by being aware and being mindful of the members that she is and isn't letting into the community, it changed everything. Crazy, right? Don't rely on an organic trickle of signups. There is a secret that most successful community builders are not telling you. They actually market their communities really, really hard. A common issue I see with many communities that are always open and available is this typically results in a very slow, uninspiring trickle of signups. The founder might occasionally mention the community, but there's no big concerted marketing campaigns around it. One solution for this is to use a cohort model. And I've actually helped several of my clients now to close their communities and only open sporadically a handful of times each year. In all of these cases, they went from a slow trickle of signups to selling out every single cohort throughout the year and seeing exponential growth versus where they started. So why is this so effective? Firstly, the nature of a cohort is that it lets you shout about something. It lets you actually put some serious effort into marketing campaigns when you're opening a cohort. And secondly, by opening up only a limited number of spaces every few months, it goes from I can sign up anytime to I want one of those spots. Start with a beta or private launch. So many community builders fail to launch at all because the idea of attracting hundreds of members on day one is daunting and often unrealistic. What's a better strategy? A private or beta launch. The idea is to get 5 to 30 early members into your community who are typically the real evangelists within your audience or network. This lets you do a few key things. Firstly, it lets you validate demand, that people are actually willing to pay for this thing. It lets you generate some early cash flow and build some momentum into your business. It lets you seed in a strong early culture and engagement from these wonderful initial members. You can refine your community offering based on how these early members actually interact with it. And of course, you can focus on over-delivering for those founding members and creating some really incredible success stories. You can then roll the community out later as part of a broader launch, knowing confidently that people love the offering and that you've been able to generate some incredible success stories that you can later use on your sales page. Don't dominate the conversation. I see this a lot. You go into a community and almost the entire content feed is basically populated with the community team. It's announcements, it's them asking questions, and the entire conversation is just them, not the members. This sends a pretty clear message to the members, which is this is a place for us to share, not for you to participate. A better approach is to actually guide members to post. I call this private to public. Have one-on-one conversations with members via DM behind the scenes. Uncover if they have value to share or questions they need help with, and then thoughtfully guide them to actually post these in the public community. And suddenly you have a rich, varied, and interesting feed of member content. You may have been the architect making all of this happen behind the scenes, but as far as the broader members are aware, this is just simply a more appealing community feed now, which means they're going to be more likely to engage in a natural, organic way because you're not dominating the conversation. Choose the best platform. Communities are hard to build, and when you're on the wrong platform that isn't community first, it pretty much sets you up for failure. I've seen a lot of our members struggle to get traction with their communities because they're on a platform that was really intended for courses, not community. And like me, many of them have migrated over to Circle, which is, in my opinion, the best community platform in the world right now. They're also kindly the sponsor of this video, so thank you, Circle, for making this video happen. Here's 3 things I love about the Circle platform. It's community first. Everything has been designed with community builders in mind. It's super feature rich. It literally has everything you need to build a membership community. It handles paywalls and subscriptions, analytics, events, courses. It has AI assistants in there, workflows and automations, and so much more. It really is just like a Swiss Army knife for community building. And probably my favorite thing is it's always improving. The team at Circle are insane at shipping improvements and feature updates to the point every single month they roll out a batch of exciting new features. What this means is in the few short years that I've used Circle, it just gets better and better. I feel like it grows with me as my community grows. You can start your free trial with Circle via the link below this video. Now, let's get back into it. Don't underprice your community. Nearly every community builder makes this mistake, including yours truly. I definitely underpriced in the early days. But the thing is, underpricing causes a range of issues. You often can't serve members to the extent you really want to because the community isn't financially supporting you enough to commit enough time. In order to often reach your income goals, you have to attract a huge volume of members, and with this comes a range of issues with that level of scale. More work, more admin, and more things that can go wrong. you typically attract lower commitment people into the community as well, which results in poor engagement, poor activation, and lower member success. And ultimately, it's super easy to end up burning out because of all of this. Often people underprice from fear of not being able to attract members. I want to encourage you to have a mindset shift around this. Instead of decreasing the price, what if you increase the value of your community? Use many of the lessons from this video to create a more compelling offer and attract members that way instead of slashing your price. Do use workflows, automation, and AI. These days, I use workflows to handle basically all of the manual tasks in my community, from onboarding to offboarding, payment notifications, and gamification. And by automating this stuff, it lets me focus on the higher impact activities like community strategy, planning events, and connecting more deeply with our members. I'm also loving using AI within Circle right now. The AI assistance feature is honestly pretty insane, and every day I'm able to see members interacting with it and getting fast access to the insights and information they need to help them on their community journey. I guess my main point here is, if you're not leveraging these technologies, then you're probably being left behind a little bit versus other community builders that are. I work with so many community builders, and the ones who are really leaning into this new technology are the ones who are benefiting most. Don't solely rely on monthly membership plans. I'll just say it. Monthly memberships are a pain. They almost always have higher churn. They attract lower commitment members. They create more admin for you because of more chance of failed payments, etc. And they create a higher turnover of members who are coming and going within your community, which has a negative impact on the overall culture. Instead, consider annual only or a mix of perhaps annual and quarterly plans. I've helped a ton of our members to drop their monthly plans, and it's something that I did a good while back as well. And I've never met anyone that's regretted doing this. Capture testimonials and success stories regularly. Most community builders undervalue how impactful member testimonials really are. They literally help you sell your community better than you can, because prospective members want to ultimately know, does your community actually deliver on its promise? However, I've been there. I understand it can feel arduous to gather member reviews. I used to sporadically DM or email members asking for feedback, and then they would kindly send some and I'd leave it sat in my inbox or in a notes file on my phone. It wouldn't even make it onto my landing page. Now I use a great tool called Sender, which lets me point our members to a central, nicely branded form. Once their review has been approved, it automatically populates on my website. And I've seen a meaningful increase in conversions on my sales page since implementing Sender. If you're curious, I've left a link in the video description where you can check it out. Don't overcomplicate your pricing or offering. I see so many community builders who are launching with 5 different tiers and all these different gated sections of their community, and it's so complicated. Unfortunately, this typically leads to confusion with your members, and it gives you more complexity behind the scenes to actually run this thing. Instead, I recommend starting with a single offering at a single price point. That's it. Just keep it simple. You can always add on a higher ticket upsell or a more basic tier downsell in future. But as a starting point, I implore you, keep it as simple as possible. This is going to let you be more focused in your execution and really deliver for those early members. Create an incredible member experience. I feel like I've been on this soapbox for a while, but no one out there is talking about member experience enough. I define this as how you want your members to feel inside your community. Working with so many community founders, I see a very small percentage that are just a level above everyone else. And it isn't that they're doing anything wildly different with their events or with their community structure or anything like that. It's typically because the experience of being a member is just that amazing. And this really comes down to the people. This is where things like culture, like rituals, and the human side of your community really come into their own. I'm going to do some content on this in the future, but the same way I encourage you to take your outcome and reverse engineer that into your offer stack, I would define how you want members to feel and then try and reverse engineer that into how you set up your community and the programming inside. Don't go for a freemium model. I kind of hate the freemium model. There, I said it. I see a lot of community builders try the freemium model, and almost always it doesn't work. Not only this, but it causes them some major headaches down the line when they eventually choose to remove the free members. When your community has both free and paid sections, a few things happen. It splits your focus because you're now focused on serving 2 distinct groups of people. it skews your community's analytics because you have a bigger group of free members that are throwing off all your data. And this free group accumulates more and more dead wood over time because a bigger and bigger portion of that group will invariably become inactive over time. It adds complexity to your community because you have to look at different access settings. And typically, it actually converts incredibly poorly because generally they are distinct groups of people. The free people are there because they like free stuff, and very rarely do they jump on over and start to pay. Once again, my advice would be to keep it simple. Just have one offering, paid, and every member there is paying and there for the same reason, and you can just work on serving those people as best you can. Run cohort style experiences. Cohorts are awesome for a few reasons. A group of people can unite around achieving a specific goal. They typically see really high engagement and success levels, and they're highly connected for the people inside. The only real downside is that cohorts are typically one-time experiences and they're sold as such, so they're not recurring revenue models. However, I'm increasingly seeing community builders take some of that cohort magic and weave it into their perpetual ongoing communities. This could be through limited time challenges, sprints, or even monthly themes. For example, in Learn Community, we just got done with a 1-month sprint helping community members to launch their community in 30 days. And there's a few benefits to this. First of all, it stops your community becoming stale. If it's always the same old events and programming, it can feel stagnant over time, whereas these time-sensitive, outcome-oriented exercises really rally people around them. It also helps you to deliver structure and results for your members, because often people aren't good at just helping and serving themselves within a community. So building something like this they can actively participate in is great. And it's really good for your broader marketing because you can publicly say, we're going into the next month's theme, or we're doing this time-sensitive sprint next week, jump in, and that gives you an excuse to actively market your community. Don't overcomplicate your community structure. If your community has too many sections and spaces, it can so easily overwhelm members. I like to employ the 80-20 rule. So typically 20% of what you actually offer is going to provide 80% of the value for your members. That's what you should focus on in terms of your community structure. Another benefit of a more minimal community structure is that you avoid diluting engagement across a ton of different spaces, which means your smaller group of spaces will appear more highly engaged, which then leads to more engagement, and so on. Create in real life experiences. Hybrid communities are booming right now. And I think in an increasingly AI-driven world, humans are craving in-person connection more than ever. As such, adding meetups, in real life events, and even mini conferences can be a huge value add for your members. There's also clear data proving that communities with an in-person element have lower churn, higher retention, and higher engagement. The engagement point makes sense because if your members are meeting in person and forming these deep connections, they're going to carry them back into the online part of your community as well. Remember, if you're considering this, it might feel daunting, but you don't need to plan an entire conference. Just go for a really informal, simple member meetup. And finally, don't neglect ongoing iteration. You should never view your community as being done. It should always be evolving and improving. In fact, in a year from now, in 3 years from now, your community should look very different from how it looks today. You should continually assess what's working and what isn't. I'm a huge fan of dropping what isn't working pretty ruthlessly and doubling down on what is. Members don't enjoy being part of something that feels stagnant and doesn't change for years. They want your community to continue to grow and evolve as they do. A good way to do this is to schedule in time to work on your community business. You don't always want to be on the hamster wheel working in your community. Take time to think strategically and make fundamental improvements. This could be as simple as one small improvement every single month, but over years, these really stack up and help you transform your community. So there you have it. That is your 10 do's and 10 don'ts for building a successful membership community in 2025. And I promise, if you follow these, you will quite literally be ahead of 99% of community builders out there. If this video was helpful, please do hit the like and subscribe buttons because it really helps this channel. And if you're building a community or thinking about launching one, drop a comment because I'd love to hear where you're at. And finally, if you want to go deeper, then check out my membership, Learn Community, where I'm helping community founders just like you. That's where you can get help actually implementing much of what you've learned in today's video, and I would love to welcome and support you there. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.